Tonight, the triple stabbing and police standoff at an encampment in Kingston. The brazen daytime attack near a safe injection site.
It happened in various areas. That's why our scene was so big.
2 people dead and a third in critical condition. The urgent plea from business leaders for Ottawa to intervene in Air Canada's labour dispute.
We need decisive action to safeguard our economy.
Travelers on edge.
It's a little unnerving, just the inconvenience of feeling stranded.
And we hear from the Italian man who unknowingly bought an iconic portrait stolen from a luxury Ottawa hotel.
It was like having the Mona Lisa in your living room.
There will be no third debate.
Plus, Donald Trump rejects another face-off with Kamala Harris.
We owe it to the voters to have another debate.
And a milestone for space tourism.
For 3 years, that sure looks like a perfect road.
As a billionaire who funded a private mission steps into the beyond.
CTV National News with Omar Sachedina.
Good evening, everyone. 2 men are dead and a suspect is in custody tonight after an hours-long standoff in Kingston, Ontario, near a safe injection site. The city's mayor wants to close it, but site staff insist it serves a critical need. CTV's Katie Griffin on the violent attack and the woman clinging to life.
The city of Kingston has now put fencing up around the encampment as the investigation into what happened continues. Kingston police were called to the scene near the encampment and safe consumption site Thursday morning and found 3 people with life-threatening injuries. They had stab wounds and injuries from a blunt object. 2 of those people have now died, both of them male, and a woman remains in critical condition. As for the suspect, police say he knew the victims. There was a standoff with him for hours in an abandoned lot before he was taken into custody.
We had multiple scenes, and we wanted to make it as big as possible to prevent any further public safety issues.
Kingston's mayor taking a hard line following the tragedy, saying in a statement this is an utterly senseless act of violence. It's clear the safe injection site and the care hub need to close immediately. I will not stand by and wait until more people die. Enough is enough. Those who work there say that will only cause more harm. The suspect is due to appear in court on Friday. Katie Griffin, CTV News, Kingston.
RCMP in Lloydminster, Saskatchewan are investigating what they call a targeted triple homicide.
It's pretty disturbing, especially since I knew them.
The bodies discovered during a wellness check on Wednesday. Mounties say the person or persons responsible are still at large. An Ottawa resident who tested positive for a rare mosquito-borne virus last month has died. It's the first human case of Eastern equine encephalitis, or Triple E, in the Ottawa region, and the first in Canada since 2022. Only about 5% of humans who are bitten by a mosquito with the virus get it themselves, experiencing swelling of the brain. Although it's rare, it can be lethal.
About a third of those cases will sadly die, and people who survive will, unfortunately be left. There's a high probability that they'll be left with neurologic deficits as a result of it.
Health officials say the best way to avoid getting it is to prevent mosquito bites. At least 5 U.S. states are taking measures to curb the spread of the virus, including closing outdoor facilities and spraying insecticides. The increasing threat of a work stoppage at Canada's largest airline has many passengers on edge tonight. Air Canada joined business groups calling on Ottawa to intervene before it's too late. CTV's Mike Walker reports.
For travelers departing today, there is plenty of uncertainty with a potential Air Canada pilot strike on the horizon.
It's a little unnerving, just the inconvenience of feeling stranded.
Not ideal, no, especially since we all have jobs.
5,200 pilots are prepared to walk off the job as early as Wednesday. The airline has warned if the deal isn't reached, it could start suspending operations and canceling flights as early as tomorrow. Travelers like this group heading to Regina for an event are now scrambling for alternatives.
Thinking more about just renting a car and driving home because that's guaranteed to get us there.
Maybe book with another airline.
Today, the Airline Pilots Association opening its strike headquarters in Toronto, where it's preparing for the possibility of a strike or lockout.
We're seeing some progress at the table. We're still asking that Air Canada really shows up and closes the gap that we're seeing at the negotiating table.
The union demanding Air Canada address the wage gap between its pilots and their counterparts in the U.S.
We're representing pilots that are, in most cases, paid half of what their industry counterparts are made. In some scenarios, the pilots who are first hired at Air Canada, they're in situations where they're having to take on second jobs.
Air Canada claims the pilots' demands are unreasonable, and with talks nearing an impasse, the airline is now urging the federal government to direct binding arbitration to prevent any travel disruptions. The airline's president warning in a statement that even a short work stoppage would cause prolonged disruptions for its customers.
Our economy is a fragile one.
A call echoed by business groups from across the country.
A one-day strike would take 1 full week to recover from. We just saw that in our railway experience.
But the federal government insists negotiations must continue.
We remain firm that the best deals happen at the bargaining table, and that's where parties need to keep working.
A work stoppage would disrupt travel for approximately 110,000 passengers daily. The federal labor minister met with both sides today as negotiations continue. If a deal isn't reached, the required 72-hour strike notice could be issued on Sunday. Mike Walker, CTV News.
The Toronto International Film Festival says it's pausing screenings of the controversial documentary Russians at War over what it called significant threats. The film follows Russian soldiers on the front lines in Ukraine and drew protests earlier this week from Ukrainian officials who called the documentary Russian propaganda, a claim TIFF rejected, saying it will screen the doc when it is safe to do so. We told you last night about an international mystery that was finally solved. An iconic portrait of former British Prime Minister Winston Churchill, snatched from a luxury hotel in Ottawa, has finally been recovered in Italy, where a man bought it, not knowing it was stolen. Today, CTV's Judy Trinh tracked him down, and here's what he told her.
We went so far in trying to avoid it as to be almost destroyed by it when it broke upon us.
Winston Churchill made this historic speech in Canada's Parliament during the Second World War. Afterwards, he grudgingly posed for this portrait. It's admired by world leaders, and this Italian corporate lawyer, Nicola Cosinelli, wanted a piece of history and bid on what he thought was a signed copy of the Roaring Lion.
Not only because Yusuf Karsh is one of the most important photographers in modern history, but also because Sir Winston Churchill is a figure I like a lot and I've studied a lot.
Casanelli purchased the portrait for 5,000 British pounds, or more than $9,000 Canadian. Sotheby's didn't know it was auctioning off the original that Yusuf Karsh and his wife had gifted to the Chateau Laurier. According to the Ottawa police, a thief replaced the Churchill portrait with a fake around Christmas 2021. Casanelli bought it in May 2022. 4 months later, a hotel maintenance worker discovered the fraud.
Madame Dumas was standing right there and I told her, I said, boss, we have a problem because this is not our picture.
In October 2022, Casanelli was warned about the potential theft, but it wasn't until February 2024 that police verified he had the stolen artifact.
It was like having the Mona Lisa in your living room.
Police have charged 43-year-old Jeffrey Wood from Powassan, Ontario, with multiple offenses in the heist. Casanelli has only been compensated for half the amount of his purchase, but he can't put a price on his experience.
I lost some money, but I have a story to tell for all my life.
Next week, Casanelli will travel from his home in Genoa to Rome to the Canadian Embassy, where he'll participate in a special ceremony to officially hand over the portrait to the general manager of the Chateau Laurier. Judy Trinh, CTV News, Ottawa.
Canada's Consul General in New York, who was used to asking tough questions in his former career as a broadcaster, was at the receiving end of them today at a House of Commons committee in Ottawa, where he was grilled over the government's purchase of a $9 million official residence in Manhattan. CTV's Geneviève Beauchemin on the tense exchanges.
I had nothing to do with this process.
New York Consul General Tom Clark repeatedly said he had no involvement in the purchase of a condo on Billionaires Row. But some committee members questioned whether he had lobbied the Prime Minister, pointing to the timing of Justin Trudeau's visit to New York just 2 months after Clark's appointment.
Stop the lying. When did you have a conversation with the Prime Minister about the necessity for a new residence? Just tell the committee, please.
You know, Mr. Chair, when we get to the point of accusing people of lying, I think that we are in very, very dangerous territory here.
Global Affairs purchased the $9 million condo next to Central Park in June. This to replace a residence used since 1961. Officials say it needed $2.6 million worth of renovations and is now listed for $13 million.
When they told me that we were giving $7 million back to Canadian taxpayers, I thought that was a pretty good deal.
But a buyer has yet to surface.
Canadians want to know. You're the $9 million man. They want to know what the value is for Canadians. Sir, keep your bags packed in that new place. Conservatives are going to fire you. Nowhere to be found.
Clark is a former journalist at CTV and Global. He was appointed in February 2023. He visited the condo after an offer was made in April. A Global Affairs official also testified Clark wasn't involved, but the Conservatives pointed to an email.
Both the Consul General of New York and the head of mission, that's you, Tom Clark, have been instrumental.
They say it provides a paper trail of Clark's role.
I only became aware of this email less than 48 hours ago. I, too, was taken aback by what was in it because it was simply wrong. It wasn't true.
Mr. Clark, let me stop you right there. I don't believe you.
But Clark also pointed to the importance of the official residence for trade relations, saying he has hosted 38 events since he was appointed. Geneviève Beauchemin, CTV News, Montreal.
A growing political standoff tonight between Ottawa and the Premier of New Brunswick, who is pushing back against the federal government's plan of resettling asylum seekers across Canada. They're currently concentrated in Ontario and Quebec. CTV's Sarah Plowman on the clash.
New Brunswick's premier insists Ottawa wants to send thousands of asylum seekers to his province, a move Premier Higgs argues would stretch healthcare, education and housing.
The Justin Trudeau government is considering a plan to send 4,600 asylum seekers to New Brunswick without providing any financial assistance.
The allegations by Premier Higgs are largely fictitious. We at no times have said that we would impose asylum seekers on provinces without financial compensation.
Canada's immigration minister had a different take.
Is that they didn't want asylum seekers with or without compensation.
To ease pressure on Ontario and Quebec, Ottawa has been modeling what it calls a fair distribution of asylum seekers. The breakdown pitched to provinces shows of the more than 235,000 asylum seekers in Canada, more than 100,000 are in Ontario and more than 99,000 are in Quebec. Ottawa's model would transfer people to every province and territory, including 21,000 people to BC, 18,000 to Alberta, and nearly 4,600 to New Brunswick. That's more than a tenfold jump. The world has witnessed an increase in the number of asylum seekers and displaced people.
So Canada is seeing a share of that, but at the same time, it's still a very small drop in the bucket.
I find it a bit worrying that they're starting to treat asylum seekers and refugees as a kind of a political football.
Miller says relocations would be voluntary and not without compensation or consent from provinces. CTV News asked Higgs why he said there wouldn't be compensation.
Well, did he identify the compensation model? Did he? Because it was not a discussion with the officials that presented this graph to us, this chart.
And tonight, it's not just New Brunswick's premier who's opposing this proposal. So too are the premiers of Nova Scotia, Alberta, and the Conservative leader of British Columbia. Omar.
All right, Sarah, thank you. We are taking a closer look tonight at Canada's healthcare crisis. Emergency room closures in rural communities where access can mean the difference between life and death. CTV's Adrian Gobriel reports.
Looking out over the glistening water of Lake Simcoe, Robin Peniel is still processing what she was forced to face just 2 weeks ago.
It was terrifying. I knew what I wanted to say, but I couldn't form the words.
On August 28th, while home alone, Peniel felt a blistering pain in the back of her head. Little did she know, she was having a stroke. Struggling to speak, she called her mother.
She just kept saying, "Mom," like that. And I said, "Have you fallen? Have you had an accident?" And then she just said, "Mom," again. And I said, "Do you want me to call an ambulance?" Whispering and stuttering, Yes.
In Peniel's hometown, 2 hours north of Toronto, the future of healthcare is top of mind. The local Bracebridge Hospital doesn't have a stroke unit. The closest is 30 minutes north in Huntsville. That's where paramedics thankfully rushed the 23-year-old, where the decision was made to airlift her to Toronto. It's a series of decisions that proved critical.
I really don't know what could have happened to me.
It's a harrowing story that both mother and daughter believe is proof in point of the necessity of a strong medical system in rural Canadian communities.
I don't think you realise how lucky you are until something like that happens.
Community hospitals across remote parts of Canada are facing challenges from staffing to funding. Last month in the BC interior, there were 26 emergency room closures over a 31-day period. Last year, the ER in this rural Ontario hospital was permanently closed. Now the hospitals in both Bracebridge and Huntsville are undergoing a redevelopment proposal. More than 50 doctors signed this open letter in July, saying the plan could negatively impact patient care for generations.
We've listened, we've listened, and we continue to listen.
While the number of acute hospital beds in Bracebridge will be declining, officials say there will be an increase in capacity at the two facilities to deal with critical mass.
Healthcare is changing, and the way that we need to respond to those needs is changing.
For Robin Peniel, she's witnessed firsthand the critical importance of a robust healthcare system for all.
Robin, what was it like to come home?
To be able to come home so fast and, you know, be with my loved ones and speak to them. It means the world to me that I'm still here and I'm okay.
The Canadian Association of Emergency Physicians say that closures and crowding are a national problem plaguing every province. Last year, there were more than 860 temporary ER shutdowns here in Ontario alone. Omar.
All right, Adrian, thank you. We have dramatic video tonight of an accident on the train tracks in South Carolina. This wild scene near Charleston, where an oncoming train smashed into a trailer hauling a military vehicle. Here's another angle. Fortunately, there were no reports of injuries. Coming up.
I believe we owe it to the voters.
There will be no third debate.
The new clash on the U.S. campaign trail. Plus, a billionaire's priceless view. The Ohio town at the center of false claims about immigrants was rocked by multiple bomb threats today as Donald Trump rejected another debate. CTV's Washington Bureau Chief Joy Malbon reports.
In Arizona, it's clear Donald Trump is still steaming over his debate with Kamala Harris, confirming there won't be another one.
I want a rematch. And that's what she said. I want a rematch. Polls clearly show that I won the debate against Comrade Kamala Harris. There will be no third debate.
Relitigating the debate, criticized even by some of his supporters as a train wreck.
The issue of abortion.
Trump attacked the ABC moderators for fact-checking him over his false claims of babies being aborted at birth and migrants in Ohio eating pets. Before a friendly audience today, Trump tried to get back on track and back on message, but echoed that same conspiracy one more time.
They're taking the geese and even walking off with their pets. My dog's been taken. My dog's been stolen.
In Springfield, Ohio, the town was forced to close its city hall after a bomb threat. Even as officials tried to smack down the debunked conspiracy, Trump supporters having a field day with it online.
This is something that came up on the internet, and the internet can be quite crazy sometimes.
Basking in her strong debate performance, Kamala Harris is pushing for round two with Donald Trump.
I believe we owe it to the voters to have another debate. Because this election and what is at stake could not be more important.
After their face-off, a new poll has Harris leading Trump by a few points, aggressively trying to flip swing states like here in North Carolina that hasn't gone Democrat since 2008.
Hard work is good work, and with your help, we will win.
And just hours after the debate, the Harris campaign took in $47 million in donations, and more fundraising help is on the way, courtesy Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama. Omar?
All right, Joy, thanks. Still ahead, Taylor Swift's message for American voters. Police are praising rock star Jon Bon Jovi. A woman had stepped on the ledge of this bridge in Nashville, close to where Bon Jovi was filming a music video. Moments later, Bon Jovi and a production assistant convinced the woman to climb back down and gave her a hug. After endorsing Kamala Harris for U.S. president, Taylor Swift had a message for young voters at the MTV Video Music Awards.
If you are over 18, please register to vote for something else that's very important coming up.
Swift won 7 awards, tying her with Beyoncé for the most in history. After the break, a historic walk on top of the world. And finally for us tonight, a historic moment high above the earth. Here's CTV's Paul Hollingsworth.
Early this morning, a high-risk, historic moment unfolded for the world to see. Tech billionaire Jared Isaacman popped open the SpaceX capsule, then ventured outside.
Back at home, we all have a lot of work to do, but from here, Earth sure looks like a perfect world.
Isaacman became the first non-professional astronaut to complete a spacewalk. He was followed by SpaceX engineer Sarah Gillis. Retired astronaut Chris Hadfield recalls his own experience walking in space.
And as you pull yourself through the door, you emerge out into the universe.
The spacewalk was also a test for these new lightweight EVA spacesuits. According to SpaceX, they are an upgrade from previous suits.
Easy to get on, easy to get off, make it flexible so movement is easier.
CTV science and technology expert Dan Riskin says these spacesuits are critical to the overall mission.
They're trying to make them look cool, and they're trying to make them lightweight, and they're trying to make them flexible. That's a big ask for a technology that has so many life-saving roles. And so testing those spacesuits is arguably an even bigger piece of this than the spaceship itself.
In the big picture, Dan Riskin says his main takeaway from this 5-day mission is this: we are all now one step closer to a vacation on the moon or somewhere in space in general.
This is a private company offering private citizens the opportunity to go to space.
The SpaceX Polaris Dawn mission will travel roughly 1,400 kilometers, further from Earth than any human has gone since the Apollo missions. Paul Hollingsworth, CTV News, Halifax.
Extraordinary. That's a snapshot of this Thursday. For all of us at CTV National News, thank you for watching, and good night.